Coach DeMarco here with another Get Better Basketball Live. And today, if you're a coach who's looking to simplify the game prior to the season, you're not going to want to miss this episode. I have Saugus basketball coach and a friend of mine, Mark Schruedner, here to share with you how he plans to simplify the game for his team. You're not going to want to miss it. Another Get Better Basketball Live is up now. Special teams or special situations. Very interested to hear about this part of the game and what adjustments you've made over your career.
So when I initially started out, Steve Boudreau, who's somebody that I'm giving a shout out to here, he was an assistant at Keene State and he's now with Tewksbury High School. And he told me that Plymouth State, when they would scout them, Plymouth State ran 2 out-of-bounds plays. That's it. And that's all they needed. They just set great screens and they did everything the right way within those 2 plays that they didn't need anything else. So that reminder for me is pretty simple when I talk about the number of out-of-bounds plays we do. You can see on this graphic here, I don't know, maybe you can't see, but it says 70 blobs and slobs. And that's like one PDF within Mike Neighbors used to do that thumb drive when he was at the University of Washington. I'm not sure if he still does it, but I got this from him, and this is just one document within the blobs folder. I'm sure there's hundreds of others. What I've found with blobs and with special teams in general is I've learned from the teams that we play against what works. I think it's very easy to look at what Brad Stevens is doing or what Steve Kerr, whoever else at the NBA level is doing and say, okay, that's what they do, so I'm going to copy them. But I'm a high school coach, and somebody else out there might be a youth coach or a college coach. It's all contingent on who your players are and how they react to given fakes and given picks and screens. So I find that my best plays have come from the plays that work against us. And also just year over year, we've kept one play pretty consistent. It's just a simple screen, the screener play. And we find that we get 4 options out of it against man, and we can modify a little bit out of zone. And because we've continued that play year after year, the kids retain it better. They've even started to run it in summer league when we're not even allowed to coach them. So, I just think there's certainly we look at the glory of like Nick Nurse ran that sideline out of bounds play against the Celtics in the playoffs, and we say, oh, that's great coaching. Like, and credit to them, and I think that was a great play. But I don't know. I look at special teams and I say the amount of time that we're spending, if we're teaching 5 out of bounds plays, you consistently have to rehearse that every single practice if the kids are going to execute that in the game the way that you want it. And the opportunity cost of spending all that time on blobs when you could be teaching something that's more common within the game. Blobs happen by my count, about 8% of offensive possessions have a blob within them at our level, at the high school level. And so are we doing a 5-to-1 ratio of transition opportunities to blob opportunities, or, a 5-to-1 ratio of dead ball opportunities to blob opportunities? I think that's essential. And if you are going to spend time on blobs, like Coach Dunn said, like you alluded to, less is so often so important. And I remember sitting down with you, actually, John. You made a great point about this, about how some teams just design a blob to get into their normal flow of the offense. It's not necessarily a blob to score, because if you looked at the amount of times that people score directly from a blob, it's so minuscule, the percentage of chances of scoring. It might make a basket every other game, but again, like, what's the trade-off of earning that basket every other game?
Always appreciate the numbers there, Coach, with you being a math teacher, the 5% of possession. So, and just thinking about, too, like with baseline out of bounds situations, one of the things that drove me crazy was, players being interchangeable, and I would like them to be able to move into different spots. But if you're going to run 17 different baseline out of bounds sets and you expect kids, substitution situations, foul trouble, they end up in different spots sometimes. And that adds another whole layer of complexity. If you know how many times, especially at the high school level, a kid knows if I stand on this block, this is what I do. But sometimes they may not know the whole situation. And I would like my players to know all the 4 spots on the floor and obviously what their read is as the inbounder. So I think less can be more in that situation. And kind of in that same line of thinking, how much emphasis is on, you know, when you're running fewer plays, thinking about the screens you're setting and how players are using screens. Is that something that, you know, you'll spend time on as a coach, or that you'll emphasize if you're using fewer baseline out of bounds plays, you know, where teams might know situationally, hey, we've seen this setup, we know what they might do here, but if your players really execute that as best they can, you still can get a player open, at least get the ball in bounds, if not get a scoring opportunity.
So first of all, I just want to touch on what you just said about getting players to be in different spots, because I think that's another element of simplifying the game. Let this other girl be the point guard. She'll turn it over, but that's like part of the process here of improving. Every player should be able to perform every job on the floor. I just read an anecdote about one of the best soccer programs in the world in Spain, and they don't give kids positions until they're 17 years old, you know? And so you think about me as a high school coach, that means I really shouldn't pigeonhole a kid until they're like a senior in high school. But getting back to your original question about like how to set the screen and what sort of emphasis we do put on that. So the reason that I think Plymouth State was so successful with those 2 plays is that they countered one another. And so if a team did cheat, you know, they had their counter down. And I think too, like you see this all the time at the youth level, right? The coach will be yelling from the sideline, stack, stack. And there'll be that one kid who's just uncovered underneath the basket, but she wants to listen to coach. So she's going to go run and she's giving up the layup to run the stack. So I think that the more that you practice 5-on-5 in practice, when you do these blobs, you're building in opportunities to work on your defense, right? Which it's a reality. You're going to have to work on blob defense too. But B, you're teaching kids to make reads and decisions within that framework of whatever, you know, our team uses box sets when we run our blobs. So if there is, you know, let's say a kid's eyes on defense can't see the ball at all. Well, that's an automatic, like if she's right in front of your face, automatic lob pass, right? It's just playing with those instincts. It's a simple thing. You know, you're taught in football, hey, the cornerback can't see the ball, so just throw it up there. Let your guy go get it and make a play. And it's the same idea in basketball. It's another way to keep things simple.